Souls games have made their mark on the gaming world by being hard. The level of this may be different from player to player, but the fact remains that Souls games are among the most difficult and have some of the most challenging bosses out there. Bloodborne, I would argue, is towards the top of the list when it comes to overall difficulty for a variety of reasons, and its bosses make sure to remind you of this often. While all the bosses of Bloodborne present their own set of challenges to overcome, some stand out more than others, and this list will provide you with the top 5 most difficult bosses in Bloodborne. Starting with number 5, we have Vicar Amelia. Vicar Amelia was a tough choice to put on this list because she's actually not that difficult in general. Her movesets are very easy to learn, and aside from her massive size and raw power, she doesn't pose as much of a challenge. So why is she here if she's not all that difficult? Well, the reason that she is on this list is because while she may not be that hard to a seasoned Souls player, as a new player to Bloodborne, she represents the first true challenge as her level is vastly higher than most players who get to her. By the time you reach Vicar Amelia, you've fought Gehrman and the Cleric Beast, both of whom are arguably balanced well as tutorial bosses so that the player can get an idea of the faster paced gameplay that comes with Bloodborne, while not taking huge amounts of damage from either. Vicar Amelia is the first roadblock because she has a lot of attacks that will take you down to half health or even lower depending upon where you have allocated your stats up to this point. She represents and sets the tone for the majority of bosses in Bloodborne because you have to learn her movesets and when to attack or she will wipe you really fast, and for this reason, she ranks as number 5. Number 4, Ebrietas, Daughter of the Cosmos. Much like Vicar Amelia, Ebrietas probably wouldn't be so difficult if it wasn't for her massive damage attacks and very high health. The hardest part of Ebrietas compared to most Bloodborne bosses isn't actually having to learn her movesets, but rather trying to unleash as much damage as you can before you have to get out of the way of one of her devastating attacks, which will in most cases one-shot you. Her size is also a big problem because of her reach, especially when she spins with her tail so that when you do try to avoid any attacks that she emits, you're probably going to tank a few hits, which in turn circles back to the survivability problem. Now understandably, most players probably wouldn't have this boss on their most difficult list, however Ebrietas is the only boss in any Souls game that I have not beaten without a summon, and for that reason alone makes her number 4. Next on the list at number 3 we have Gehrman, the First Hunter. Gehrman embodies everything that I love about Souls games. Throughout all of Bloodborne we climb a mountain of challenges, perfecting our skills, our weapons, our timing, everything. And then From Software is like, excellent, now go fight yourself. As his name suggests, Gehrman is a hunter like us, and his movesets are very representative of this. He has massive swinging attacks and grab attacks with his scythe, as well as a gun that stuns hard if you have the misfortune of being hit with it. His speed is also very difficult to manage, especially in the second phase where he becomes quite frenzied. Timing is everything when it comes to fighting Gehrman, so learning his movesets are key, as well as knowing when to attack and when not to. He's not an enemy that you can brute force with damage, as he moves around so much and so quickly, and for these reasons, Gehrman has earned number 3. Number 2. Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. Lady Maria is essentially Sister Fried from Dark Souls 3, mixed with Wolf from Sekiro when it comes to her attack. Ironically enough, the first part of her fight can be quite easy for players who land enough initial damage or hit a few solid stuns. Her second phase is when the fight gets tough though. She pulls out 2 blades and her swipes leave behind trails of fire and blood that have a very far reach. These attacks are very devastating because she usually follows up with a few of them that are just enough to kill anyone who is unlucky enough to not get the perfect dodge. Much like Gehrman, learning Lady Maria's attack patterns is the only way to succeed in this fight and is how she has gained the number 2 spot on this list. Coming in at number 1 to no one's surprise, we have the Orphan of Kos. Orphan has gained a reputation as being one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult boss in any Souls game to date. Its attacks are varied and sporadic, while also causing immense amounts of damage. One of the hardest parts of this fight was learning when to dodge, as many of the attacks in this fight are frenzied and random. Orphan offers no time to recover from knockdowns and has many attacks such as this one here that damage you when he pulls his weapon back to him, almost as a punishment for dodging properly but in the wrong direction. His second phase is also very difficult because not only do you have to deal with his initial attacks, but he also creates environmental hazards that you have to dodge, such as lightning storms and toxic clouds, making the entire arena a potential hazard. Orphan of Kos remains the hardest boss in Bloodborne because even after mastering his attacks, landing enough successful hits while also managing your stamina and dodge times can be a challenge all in itself. For these reasons, Orphan of Kos is the number 1 most difficult boss in Bloodborne. Comment below the boss you had the hardest time with in any Souls game, and feel free to leave a like. As always, thank you so much for watching.